Well, hello, brethren, and a happy Sabbath to everyone. Uh, Hope everyone had a good week. In 2023, I was blessed to attend the Feast of Tabernacles in Israel. And I know I may never have that opportunity again in this life. Some of you have not been and may not have the opportunity in this life, and some of you have. But I thought I would like to share some of the pictures and memories of this trip. It'd be a little something different. And, there's something about seeing these places for yourself that Jesus' disciples, or many of the people that are mentioned in the Bible and the scriptures, where they were. And it really brings your faith to life. And it did me. And I hope it does you. It's better to be there, of course, yourself. But I have around 1,900 pictures. So, lucky for you, I'm not going to try to go over all those, but I have somewhere between 300 and 400 slides to show. So I have to move pretty fast. And if anyone would like to see more of the pictures, please reach out to me. I thought it would be a bit different and interesting to some. So, as you know, a war did break out while I was there, and I had 2 flights canceled. So I was delayed and had to stay extra time. I was able to go to another tour and see Jordan. So I stay a little longer. I'm very grateful to be able to go to the places I did and see the things I did. I didn't get to see a lot of things I would like to, but I still am very thankful. And, I hope seeing this builds your faith as it did mine. And I know being there is always better, but I hope you enjoy the presentation. So we arrived in Tel Aviv at the airport there, and this is the Mediterranean Ocean from my room in Tel Aviv. And we were supposed to fly out of here at the end of the trip, but that didn't happen because they were bombing, and so that's when things started getting canceled. So there is this beautiful ocean. You can see this. One of the first places we went was Caesarea National Park. And here you can see some of the monuments and statues and things. Some of the people that would take over, the barbarians and or the rulers that would come in, and nations that would take over, would a lot of times cut the heads off of the statues, or something if they were gods, or the rulers of the area. They would cut off the heads sometimes, or the faces, as you can see here. As we started to go into, you can see some of the old structures as we're going around Herod's palace, getting close to Herod's palace. Caesarea National Park, you can see from a distance. You can already see one of the arenas there that was for horse racing coming up. This particular theater here was remodeled quite a bit. You can still see some of the original, but you can see the seats have been redone here, and it's actually used for live concerts. As you can see here, it's quite modern looking. So as I said, it's a very modern stage, and they did use these for live concerts. And the acoustics were very good. You could stand on the stage without a microphone or anything, or a PA, and your voice would carry quite well. Here you can also see our tour guide. At one point, he had lived in North Carolina, so it was very good. And here is another shot of the theater. Here's yet another shot. And if you notice here, they had some passageways or rooms, but sometimes between the seats, and they had what was referred to as acoustic jars in the back that would help enhance the sound. And I guess part of what made it louder, you know. So the Romans were very intelligent about things like this. Okay, here's some more Roman architectural things, columns. Now Herod's palace, and here you can see this area here is darkened. Was actually the base, the foundation of that palace. It was built there off the water, and here you can see it very clearly. It's a little closer shot. Now this was a public restroom, latrine or whatever restroom, but underneath water would run, and people would just sit down on this. I guess male and female. It was wide open, so it's just kind of the way it was. Now here we have the arena close up, and you can see here the seating was a lot of originals, very old, and this is where the horse races. So you might have seen movies with Charlton Heston or somebody, you know, doing the horse races. This may have been one of the places it would have happened. Another shot of the arena. Another shot of the area of his palace, Herod's palace. And these chambers may have well been for the horses and the chariots and all this. The stalls. Here we have the governor's palace baths. And you can see that here. Mount Carmel National Park. What happened on Mount Carmel with Elijah? The frenzy of the prophets of Baal was not successful. However, when Elijah prayed to the Lord, fire descended from heaven and lit the sacrifice. It was on Mount Carmel as well that the prayer of Elijah secured the end of the drought and famine that had befallen Israel. 1 Kings 18:38. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. Now when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." And Elijah went up to the top of Carmel. Then he bowed down on the ground and put his face between his knees. So this was a monument they created, of the Elijah monument. Here's a close-up shot of that monument of Elijah. And here we can see, yeah, there's Sid and Teresa and our tour guide here. And I'm in the background. And this is the area where they believe that would have, this act would have happened, where the sacrifice was burned up, and Elijah's sacrifice. And Megiddo, located in northern Israel, is a significant archaeological site known for its long history, strategic location, and biblical significance, particularly in the context of the book of Revelation and the prophesied battle of Armageddon. Revelation 16:14. Revelation 16:14. For they are spirits of demons performing signs which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Now notice here it's not the battle of Armageddon, but the battle of the great day of God Almighty. They gathered them together to the place called in Hebrew Armageddon. Here is the valley of Megiddo, and this is where Christ will fight the armies of the earth. The armies will gather together to fight him. So what will it take to everybody to get together, in agreement to fight this enemy? Well, they might think it's an alien or something. We don't know, but a lot of battles have taken place here on this battlefield, in this huge field, and there is quite a bit of history here. But this is where it will take place. So it's a very interesting sight to be able to see where the last battle will occur here. And here's another shot of the area. And there's a picture of myself standing in front of it. So they did have a pretty advanced tunnel system here that fed water out to Megiddo, the field there, and to give water to the troops. So pretty advanced system. Here you can see a stairwell that goes down into the water supply, the tunnel that was underneath. And here is that tunnel. And you can see inside the tunnel. Okay, so here we have the Solomonic Gate that was believed to have been around the time of Solomon and perhaps even built by him. So, and here is that gate. Some of the rocks and things that a lot of the digs and the things that we saw may only be knee high because the erosion, most weren't very tall. They were. And here we have another excavation. And as you can see, some of the walls are higher, like the one we just saw. It was about head high, but these are about knee high in places. And you see a lot of things like this that are a lot of rocks, a lot of things to see, archaeological things that prove that the existence of that were built in the time of Solomon, back in those days in Israel, the kingdom of Israel. Now here was a temple of Canaanites. They're mentioned in the Bible, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Moabites, all the ites. Well, you see proof of those people here, and a lot of things in the museum as well, the artifacts that they found. So there's a lot of proof here. Hazor. That was a Canaanite excavation. So a lot of these excavations here, we have a Canaanite temple. Maybe the place there where they would give sacrifices. And you see a lot of archaeological digs, excavations, and things that are just amazing. Okay, here you can see a pagan site, and you can see that, well, some of the rocks and things, these were used for worship, and places that were used for sacrifices and things. Some of these were very primitive, and some of them were more advanced, carved out gods. But some of them were just stones sometimes. Citadel and cultic installation. It talks about high places a lot in the Bible, and uh, the pagans would have these a lot. And here's one such god there. You know, the Bible mentions a lot about high places, uh, especially in the period of Judges, and sometimes in one scripture says on every high hill, you know, that you could find these. And here is a place that I believe is actually around the time of Solomon. Might have been built by Solomon. And this is probably a place of where sacrifices were made. There was two Israelite sites that were moved so that they could preserve them, and here are those sites. And this fellow here, we got to know each other and become pretty good friends. You know, he's from California, and so he was my buddy while I was there, one of my good friends. And but you can see they're about waist high, the rocks, and you can go around and see the rooms. And here we have an olive oil press. I'm not quite sure how it works, but there it is. So next we'll come up on the Sea of Galilee, and we know that's where a lot of Christ's ministry was, around that sea, which is really just a large lake. And you can see the beautiful full moon. It's always there at the Feast of Tabernacles. It's a reminder of how great God is, his Sabbath and his feast. And we're doing something right, you know, because every time I go to the feast, you can see that beautiful moon, full moon, and you know. And here you can see the Sea of Galilee. And I had to go out and put my feet in it and walk in it. And so here you can see I actually tried to walk on the water on the Sea of Galilee. And, you know, I don't guess I had enough faith, or maybe I was put on too much weight there. That shirt's kind of tight, but regardless, it didn't quite work out for me. But I did give it an effort, you know. So I get a E for effort. Beatitudes. The Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount, the Sea of Galilee. In Matthew 5:1, we can read this. Matthew 5:1, and seeing the multitudes, he went up on a mountain, and when he was seated, his disciples came to him. Then he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, not heaven. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when they revile you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. So here we have the Church of Beatitudes, which is the Catholics would build churches wherever they thought a spot was, and here they believe this to be where the Sermon on the Mount was given. Very beautiful area on the Sea of Galilee. And this is inside the church. And I didn't take a lot of pictures. There were a lot of statues and crosses and things. Okay, here we have a trail that goes down to the place to where they believe Jesus would have talked to the people and given the Sermon on the Mount. Another beautiful view of the Sea of Galilee. This is the church again. There's myself in my Jed Clampett hat in front of the Sea of Galilee. Now this is from a boat trip we took, and very beautiful water there. And there were several places, that the tour guide said it could have been happened on, not necessarily where the Catholics built the church. So there's debate among some things there so there was several places that he pointed out that could have been, the Sermon on the Mount could have been given. There's another area. And a beautiful shot of the Sea of Galilee from the boat. It was a really great feeling to be on the water that Jesus Christ was on. And here, from the boat still, you can see the Church of Beatitudes there on the hill. Capernaum, the town of Jesus. And this has a very special meaning, as we know the synagogue, where Christ spoke. And this was a very special place to be, because he was there. And here you can see some of the remains of the synagogue. So you can see here the inside of the synagogue. I actually stood on this column base. I may have taken a picture taken. I can't remember, but this was a very special place to be. Okay, they had dug this area out, and if you look down in here, you can see the different layers, since Christ's time, and they dug down to where they believe maybe the layers when Christ would have been there, the layer. Another picture of myself with a column growing out of my head, apparently. In the synagogue in Capernaum. Now this was beside the synagogue. This was Peter's house, where Peter was believed to live. And you can see the way the rooms were just added on as, I guess the family grew or whatever. Jesus Christ stayed here with Peter's son, and people would come to him and be healed. So this was a very special place. Another shot of Peter's house. And here is Peter's house from, and you can see the synagogue alongside of it. And this was a monument built for Peter. The mosaic flooring, you can see here, very beautiful. And there is the statue in full. There was quite a few people there in front of it, so I couldn't get very close to it. So at one time, I had to go and get some things from a store. And if you can see, everything is in Hebrew. So everything on the packages, everything is in Hebrew. So luckily there was a few people that spoke English that could help me out. So here we see a 2,000-year-old boat. It is referred to as the Jesus boat. Here you can see that this boat was used somewhere along the time of Christ. He may have even rode in this boat, we don't know, but they preserved it very well. They had to be it's very delicate, so a lot of special procedures were used to preserve it. A little closer in. The Migdal Synagogue. So this was discovered in Galilee and one of the 7 known from the period in the land of Israel. And here you can see the remains of it. Mosaic flooring, very beautiful flooring there. And like I said, you would see a lot of digs like this and just maybe knee high. A lot of rocks and a lot of heat and hills and sand and dirt in the whole area. I think these were banana plants. So we're going down on the bus. And again, as we get to the rocks that, the pagan worship, they would set up these things, and the pagan worship, they used a lot of these things. You can find these. And some Roman architecture mixed, columns and things mixed in there, as you can see. The Temple of Pan, which was a pagan god. And this was a very beautiful hill that had carvings they carved out of the rock. And I think it was a waterfall there. It was a very beautiful place, but different gods had been worshipped there. Some very nice pictures. It was a sanctuary of Pan. And here you can see some of the remains that were dug out of this cliff, the rock. Some of the remains here. The court of Nemesis. Another god. There's the tomb temple of the sacred goats. Some more architectural things and columns. Stucco from Banias temples, another god. The Romans had a lot of gods, and a lot of, even back to the days of Israel and beyond. All these gods were worshipped, and there's proof of this, and proof of, all this, the Israelites and the things the Bible mentioned really happened. And again, there's that cliff of the Temple of Pan. This was an aqueduct, remains of that. Doors of burial caves. There's just like one of the road signs I thought was interesting. It's a little blurry. 2 Kings 23:8, and he defiled the high places where the priest had burned incense and break down the high places of the gates. So this was a good king, King Josiah. And we can look at some of those places, the gates, and the remains of that. And yet another slide of the places of worship in the temples. Now here we have the remains of an Israelite gate. So more proof of the Israelites. So this was some more Israelite areas believed to be in the time of Solomon. Another shot of that. Another picture of that area. First Kings 12:28, and the king made 2 calves of gold, and he set one in Bethel and the other he put in Dan. So this was Jeroboam, a very bad king, and here we have the area, and this is where he set up these places of worship. And of course, you can see here where the metal is where the calf, one of the calves would have been, and they would have worshipped that calf. And there's where you can see where a larger view. You can see more of it, yeah. And now a close-up. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar. And that would have been in Leviticus, and this is referring to it's Leviticus 16:12, referring to the priest, Levitical priest. And here is that place where they believe that altar to have been. It's amazing to see these rocks and things. It would have been that old. And here's another picture of where the calf would have been located. Now the Canaanite gate, the gate of the 3 arches. I thought this was very interesting. And here's a little model of it, what it would have looked like. The Canaanites building here. Well, here we can see this building has been preserved very well, very high up, and we can see there's a top over and to keep erosion from destroying it. It's pretty impressive. This is some of the landscape as you would have seen driving down the road. A lot of hills, a lot of homes like this, up on packed together. The Golan Heights. 2/3 of the area was occupied by Israel following the 1967 Six-Day War and then effectively annexed in 1981, an action unrecognized by the international community, which continues to consider it Israeli-occupied Syrian territory. 2024, Israel occupied the remaining 1/3 of the area. A lot of history's happened here over the years. So this is a kind of a monument area here. And they would place rocks up where people had died. There's a monument. And out in the distance, you'll see the UN. So if you look here, you can actually see UN. So this is United Nations. And so there is that actual building. And here's another shot of a picture of that. And the landscape there is quite beautiful. Bet Shean. Bet Shean offers the most extensive archaeological site in Israel with some of the best preserved ruins in the Middle East, but its memory will forever be linked to one of the most ghoulish events in the Bible. On nearby Mount Gilboa in 1004 BC, the army of King Saul, Israel's first king, was defeated by the Philistines, and Saul's 3 sons were killed. To avoid capture, the wounded Saul fell on his sword. The triumphant Philistines took the bodies of Saul and his sons and fastened them to the wall of Bet Shean. They put Saul's armor in their temple. Palladius Street, built on Roman foundations, is a very elegant area. As we come into it, and up here you can see this hill at Bet Shean, this area where I was also told that Saul and his sons, their heads were put on stakes, which they did a lot of times. After they had captured, here's another shot. One of the stones, it may have been, this device may have been used to carry those stones, apparently. Huge stones. Another picture. Now the theater, a theater, an amphitheater are the ones that are completely around, and the theaters are about half around. So this one is one of the most Scythopolis in this area was one of the most best preserved ancient theaters discovered in Israel, built at the end of the 2nd century CE. So and here we can see the theater, and you can tell the seats are very old and not modernized. They're there you can see. And as we spoke of some of the chambers, that would be dressing rooms or could have held those sound canisters that we were talking about. But this was truly a very beautiful theater. And there was an amphitheater just down the road. We passed it. We could kind of see it from a distance, but it was not in the itinerary to go there. I was a little upset about that, but because I did want to go there. But And here we can see a lot of the Roman architecture that's left. Another beautiful shot of the theater. And here we have some more shots of the beautiful Roman architecture columns. This was a very large city and a very beautiful city. A lot of commerce here. You can see the different rooms, buildings. More of the Roman architecture. The bathhouse. This was interesting because the Romans apparently did the cold hot baths. And here we have where they would fill this with water. They would have the hot baths and the cold baths. And I've been practicing cold showers for several years now. A Swedish guy named Wim Hof. And I've been doing that, and we'll take a regular warm shower, and then the cold showers have a lot of health benefits. So I've started doing that. It really energizes you, wakes you up. But the Romans were practicing this. And these kind of go through the routines they had. They might have weightlifting and, like a modern gym today. They did wrestling, weightlifting, whatever. Then they would get in the hot baths, and they would have this cauldron bath. You can see the different levels of it. Here's kind of like a sauna today, and then eventually they would end up in the cold bath. To work up a nice lather before washing it all away in the bath, you might take some sort of exercising like wrestling and weightlifting. And there's close-up of the hot cauldron bath. So like I said, they would didn't do the cold showers or cold baths, cold plunge, and then it has anti-inflammatory effects. It closes the pores and it energizes all the nerves, gets the blood flowing. So it's very effective. And also they would have massage and advanced massage techniques and things. So okay. So Sid and I, as we had worked out a couple times together while we were here, and we decided we would run to the top of this mountain. And a run it was. It was very exhausting, but we made it and we didn't die. But from the top of it, you can see the city. Very beautiful. And how large this area was. You can see the theater, you can see it all there together. And notice over here some of the columns would fall down through earthquakes and through time, and they were just left where they're laying. Oh, the Dead Sea. The lowest place on the earth. And the Dead Sea is shrinking, by the way. It is getting smaller. And it was one of the most enjoyable things that I experienced there, because in 4 or 5 foot of water, you can just float. You don't have to do anything. You just float. It's quite amazing. They say not to get the water in your eyes or to swallow it. And I found out the hard way, because I got some in my eyes, and luckily one of the natives there had saw me, and he had some bottled water, and he helped me, because it was just a little bit. I'd put some sand on my forehead. I thought it was mud, but it wasn't the mud. It was just sand, and water started trickling down in my eyes, and just a drop or two, and it burns worse and this gets worse and worse. And finally, I couldn't see anything. My eyes were totally shut, and I was trying to panic and try to get out of the water, and he helped me. Very thankful. But I finally found the mud, and it does have healing properties. I had a couple places on my feet, and I had tried to get them off. I went to dermatologists, and after, before, I did this, just a matter of days, they were gone. The church in the city of David, where Jesus is traditionally believed to have been crucified by many, is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It is located on the old city of Jerusalem. The church claims to encompass the site of Jesus' crucifixion, burial, and resurrection. It is considered one of the holiest sites in Christianity by Catholics. So this is another church the Catholics built there, and their claim is that all this happened in the old city, which I personally very much doubt that. And these things are debated, but the church is beautiful. Did go in it. You'll find a lot of priests inside and a lot of things in there. There was a stone, and I can't remember exactly that Jesus laid on it or what, but people would touch it, and I think I've got a picture touching it, and place in there where he apparently they believe he was crucified is in that structure, which I believe it to be out of the city limits. I think the scripture says that. So the city of David, Jerusalem, the original city of David is smaller than Jerusalem is now. Jerusalem has grown quite a bit larger, and the city of David is the area that we're focusing on now. There's a little gift shop there. The Davidson Center. Now, this was very, very informative, and enjoyed it very much. They have a model set up, as you can see here. And this model shows where the temple, what it would have looked like in the city of David, the area. You can walk around it and learn a lot about the history. And inside the museum, there is just tons of stuff. I didn't even come close to looking at it all. It was so much. The Dead Sea Scrolls. You can see this, fragments of the scrolls. You can see proof of the Canaanites, as we've already seen, but now you can see some of their artifacts. The Hittites, the Ammonites. You can see all these people that existed. It's not just made up stuff. The Bible is as a accurate history book. It's accurate, and it's just amazing to see that all these peoples existed. And a lot of stones have proof of Israel and the scriptures. They back it up. And yes, there are a lot of proofs in here, a lot of things that back up the scripture, and so much. And I've got many more pictures. There's a Roman helmet. My Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. Matthew 26:39. So the Garden of Gethsemane. And there's also a church built beside of this, but here's this garden where Jesus prayed. And where he was also betrayed. They got a very beautiful church here beside the garden. More shots of the garden area. Now here you can start to see the walls of the old city, and a lot of history here. And some of the stones were just massive. Don't know how you could even carry them. And now we get to the western wall, where a lot of people believe this is the wall remainder of the temple. And there you can see people praying at the western wall. And many would leave little notes in the cracks. Here's another beautiful shot. Picture. Now we're inside here, and the women were on one side, the men on another. And it was, I think I have one video. There was so much activity going here, and people would pray and chant, and many different cultures of different forms of Judaism and religion there. So many different cultures. Dome of the Rock here. The Dome of the Rock is an Islamic shrine at the center of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I got a pretty close shot here. As you can see, we're told not to carry any Christian stuff, Bibles or anything like that around it and get close to it, because somebody might come out with guns. So that's about as close as I wanted to get. There's a shot of me in front of it. There's a little building off to one side of it. Another area. Standing in front of it. That's what it looks like. Very beautiful. And this, from that area, you can see the view of the Mount of Olives now. You know this is where Jesus went back to the Father, rose up and went into the clouds, and this is the way he shall return, the angel said, at this point on the Mount of Olives. So this is a very special picture that I got to take. And it means a lot. I hope it does to you. And you can see a young Jewish boy close to the wall. It took me a while to get there, but I worked my way in and I touched it. And a lot of the Jews will wear these hats like this, and like I said, there were a lot of different groups and of Judaism. So you can see that from here. They all just kind of get along, I guess, or blend in. And then here we have a replica of the menorah, the golden menorah. And also I'll make mention here the Temple Institute. We did go into that, and and they say that now they have this red heifer that's required to build the temple, start building the temple. But inside there was a lot of interesting stuff, really. And there in the museum was loaded full of stuff. You could spend a lot of time there. There's a picture with Steve Myers. He was on the tour as well. Now this fella here is from our church, and he has been involved in one or more of the digs. And a lot of these areas here were pools where they would wash and clean before they would go into the temple. So here we have the rules for immersion. So there were so many rituals that the Pharisees and the Jewish had made man-made rules that they would have to wash and certain washings and things to go in the temple or to go do certain things. So Jesus called them hypocrites many times because they were man-made rules and man-made laws, but they wouldn't obey the commandments of God. So he said, you put aside the commandments of God, you may hold your own tradition. Well, today's counterfeit Christianity is much the same. There's many different sects of, just like there are and still are of Judaism, as we see that clearly. And when you go into the city, you see all these different religions. It's amazing, the different cultures and things. But again, the modern Christianity is traditional and the counterfeit. A lot of it is man-made things that we do that are not what Jesus said to do or the Bible. So people follow, rather they'll break the commandments of God to keep their own tradition, just like Jesus said. And there were many pools and such around the areas here, and many people, Jesus healed in some of these pools. And here's some more areas of where they had some washing areas. And we have the Shiloh pool, which Jesus did heal a man there. The Pool of Siloam, also known as the Pool of Shiloh, is a significant archaeological and historical site in Jerusalem, particularly known for its role in the New Testament story where Jesus healed a blind man, John 9:7, and he told him, go wash yourself in the Pool of Siloam. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. And here's that pool. And here is another picture of the pool. Of course, it was filled with water at that time. So we have some remains of Jerusalem's main street running the lengths of the western wall in the late Second Temple period. So the streets were quite beautiful, and you just wonder, where Jesus actually walked, if you're actually walking on the same spot he did. So that was very, very, had a great feeling. And some more streets you see. And you see the rocks. Notice the rocks that are piled up here. Collapsed on the paved street are stones of the western wall of the Temple Mount enclosure. They were hurled down by the soldiers of the Roman legion after the destruction of the temple on the 9th day of the month of AD 70 CE. Of course, the temple, it says, was destroyed and burned, and I often wondered how, it could burn, because it was mostly rocks. So how did they burn it? But the soldiers toppled the stones a lot over. And you can see them laying in the street still. Here's another example, the stones just laying there, where the soldiers just pushed them over. Another example. And here you see some the stones in the wall of the city, and some of these are huge. It's amazing how they built this back in that day. And of course, here we're just walking on the street again and imagining Jesus may have walked these same streets. Hezekiah's tunnel. King Hezekiah's tunnel, also known as the Siloam Tunnel, is a 1,750-foot-long water tunnel built by the King Hezekiah of Judah to divert water from the Gihon Spring to the Siloam Pool within the city of Jerusalem. This tunnel was a crucial part of Jerusalem's water supply, and it played a role in fortifying the city against potential sieges. And here we're going into the tunnel. This is one of the rooms or areas in the tunnel. And once you get in it, you can see there's water there, about a foot deep in places. And it's very dark, so you need a flashlight. It's amazing how they dug this out by hand back in those days. And it runs underground under the streets of the city. Very narrow in places. This fella got in front of me, and I was a little concerned about it, but he made it out. So it all worked out good. Now here is the Valley of Hinnom, and you know, this was not in the itinerary of the trip, and I had always said if I go to Jerusalem, I want to go to this place, so Gehenna, which is the Greek word for hell. When Jesus refers to the punishment of the lake of fire, he refers to Gehenna. So that is the Valley of Hinnom. So it was a landfill area back then, which burnt up. But to go there, I wanted to say I went to hell. So I can honestly say that. It wasn't in the itinerary, but 3 or 4 guys agreed to help me find it. So we went on our own, and we were able to find this place. And here it is, a walking trail in a park. They have turned it into that now, so it's not like it used to be. But and here is another sign, as you can see up here, and it says Hinnom. And now here's a picture of me on the trail at the Valley of Hinnom. So that was Gehenna, which Jesus always referred to as the punishment of the wicked, referring to the lake of fire, which is a second death. So I can honestly say I've been to hell, and I've been to hell and back. So there you go. So this is pretty significant. Something I always wanted to do. Masada National Park. The events at Masada, specifically the mass suicide of the Jewish defenders rather than surrender to the Romans, are not mentioned in the Bible. The siege of Masada occurred during the First Jewish-Roman War around 73-74 AD and is primarily documented in Josephus' The Jewish War. The Romans laid siege by building a circumvallation wall and a massive ramp. According to Josephus, when the walls were breached in 73-74 CE, the Romans found nearly 1,000 inhabitants had died by mass suicide. So they had rather do this than see their women and children raped and the torture, because they knew the Romans had to go through a lot to get to them, and they would be angry. So here you had to take a lift ride up to the mountaintop. And as you get toward the top, it's very high up, as you can see. and it was like a city up on top, a refuge. And King Herod had added so much to it and built onto it and added food supplies, and there was water and food, and my understanding there was, I think, even weapons there. They were fortified. It was a fortified city there. So these rebels, Jewish rebels, had went up there to protect themselves. And here in this area, I'll show you. So to get up there, the Romans had to, as a place like this, and the gate was on up, and they had to fill this with tons of dirt to get it built up to where they could build this huge contraption that would go up like a big catapult or something, but it would go up and be able to reach the top of the gate to get over it. And the Romans finally did that, but like I said, they were all supposedly had committed suicide. I think it said that maybe 2 were still alive. 2 women, maybe women or children. I think there were 2 survivors, as Josephus says. And there's been debates about that too as well. But as you get to the top, you can see that there's a lot of room and buildings and area. And again, looking down, picture of me overlooking the area. Another picture of me overlooking there. Here's me again. And there's me with Sid and Teresa. I think the only picture we got of the 3 of us. One of the rooms at the top. Another one of the areas and rooms. It was quite huge up there. And here is where the water supply was, and you can go down in it. It was very large. So it held a lot of water. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of ancient Jewish manuscripts discovered between 1947 and 1956 in caves near Khirbet Qumran on the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. These scrolls, dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE, included some of the oldest existing fragments of the Hebrew Bible, as well as religious writings, hymns, and legal documents. And here we go into this area, and we start to see some of the caves here. Standing in front of some of the caves and where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And again, right outside that area, there were more of these ritualistic baths. And here we have some more shots of that and pictures. Here's a very good one. And I am not 100%, but I'm pretty sure this is one of the, well, let's see. Maybe this is one of the caves that some of the scrolls were found in, and maybe this one as well, but there were several. So there's quite a few caves there. Golgotha, meaning place of the skull in Aramaic, is a traditionally identified location where Jesus was crucified. It is located outside the walls of Jerusalem and is mentioned in all 4 Gospels. The site is believed to be a hill, potentially resembling a skull cap or the upper part of the skull. So this would be more likely where Jesus was crucified than inside the city, right? So, and here is that place. And here you can see, as identified, possibly here, and here's a area, maybe here. And then, of course, you've got over here. I'm not sure exactly which of these, but there is a parking lot down below it now. But that's most likely the spot where he was crucified. And, of course, there's debate to that as well. But the Garden Tomb. the place where he was crucified, there was a garden. In the garden was a new tomb where no one had ever laid. And that was John 19, verse 41. So here is that tomb. And as you can see, I've already converted by this time. I saw Steve Myers once, and he said, made a joke that I see you've converted over. And you can see by the headdress I have on here. So we got a good laugh out of that. And again, this tomb was somewhat later than Jesus Christ by what our tour guide said, so it was unlikely in his opinion, and others that it was the actual tomb, but it was a tomb like this that Jesus was in. And it may have been, but there's where he would have laid. There's the inside the tomb. So everything about this was debatable, but there's a good picture of the outside. And of course, going on the on to Jordan, we went to Petra, and this is believed by the church to be the place of safety, which we don't believe in a rapture to protect people from the tribulation, but we do believe that many will be martyred and that some will be protected. So we're to pray for that, protection, but we believe it'll be on the earth in a place of safety. So a lot believe that this Petra would, for some reason, would be that place. And is a famous archaeological site in Jordan's southwestern desert, dating to around 300 BC. It was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, accessed via a narrow canyon called Al-Sik, I think. It contains tombs and temples carved into pink sandstone cliffs, earning its nickname the Rose City. And there's some very high rocks. And this was after I got halfway down through it. I got tired, so I rented a camel, and they gave me the biggest one. I always loved camels. I find them fascinating. So it was big, and it liked to trot. Now, if you've ever ridden a horse, they're more comfortable to me when they're either running or walking. But when they start trotting, it's a little harder to hang on and control it. Well, imagine a big animal like this galloping or trotting, and that's what it seemed to be doing. And well, I had blisters by the time I got to the restaurant, which is at the bottom of Petra. They have a restaurant down there. So I paid to ride back, but I kind of decided not to. I had blisters by that time, and I was on my derriere, so I was quite in pain for several days. And here we have some of the caves, and then we'll see some very beautiful things. It's carved out of the rocks. It was a huge city down there. And there I'm on the camel riding, and you start to see some of the carvings. This ancient people that came up with this. And now you can see caves and holes in this. They wouldn't let us go into caves for safety reasons, and you wonder, how far back in there does this go? And there people lived in there. And look at all these rooms. And here we have even a theater. I mean, it was a civilization down here. It was quite amazing, quite impressive. And all this is built out of the rock. Look at this. I'm glad I didn't miss this, I mean, just picture after picture of cave after cave, and this is actually when you go into it or when you come out of it, this is what you walk through. It's a very, very narrow, and the walls are extremely high, so you can see how you'd be protected more so in a catastrophe, And there was my camel before I even got on it, I think. There it is, picture. Of course, they gave me the largest one, I think. And this is beautiful because it's right in the middle, and it's one of the most beautiful parts that they had carved out. And I think maybe the Romans had something to do with this, because you can see the Roman architectural design in it. You can see that here. The Mountain of Nebo. The Memorial of Moses. So, Mount Nebo. Deuteronomy 32:48. On that same day the Lord told Moses, go up into Abarim range to Mount Nebo and Moab, cross from Jericho and view Canaan, the land I am giving the Israelites as their own possession. There on the mountain that you have climbed you will die and be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. This is because both of you broke faith with me in the presence of the Israelites at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the desert of Zin, and because you did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites. Therefore you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel. So God is very, when he tells us to do something, he expects us to do it and not to go to the left or right. Even Moses, after all he did, it's like he got to see the land. This is what he would have seen. And I think this probably to be the west. Not 100% sure. But I think that was the west. And then as we go around, another shot. Beautiful, beautiful country. And we know that this promised land that is shown here would eventually get larger and larger till it becomes the whole earth. And as we know, it says the universe in Hebrews, that the sons of God will inherit the universe. So here's Pope John Paul II planting olive tree that he planted up on the mountain. This fellow right here, he's in our church, and he was in one or two of the digs, the excavations. And so Sodom and Gomorrah, I think there's another site as well that many believe to be the site of Sodom and Gomorrah, but he believes this site to be it. So he's been working there, and he gave some lectures on it to prove his views. And so we went there. And this is the site. And there are two cities close by. So everything he said made perfect. Well, like I said, that kind of ended the trip. And in the beginning, I had 2 flights canceled. I got scammed. I tried to get another flight, and I thought it was Turkish Airlines, and it ended up being a scammer. And then I finally did get a flight, and I can't remember, it was either $3,200 or $3,600 it cost for a one-way ticket back to the U.S. And so from Amman to Doha, and then from Doha to New York, in Kennedy Airport. So I was very glad to get on American soil. People ask me, were you afraid or were you scared at any time? And I don't know. Honestly, I don't think I was. I was too into what we were doing, and uh, I was more concerned about my tickets, getting the tickets home and getting scammed and all that. So, uh, and the aggravation of taking more days off of work. But I would take nothing for the trip, for the experience, and it's probably a trip of a lifetime for me. And I hope to do it again. I hope to go back to Egypt, and there's so much over there to see. And but I can honestly say it strengthened my faith to see these things, and also to understand more about it. I strengthened my faith, and I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it strengthens your faith.